My selfish and greedy husband demanded that I hand over my dream car and all my savings to cover his massive gambling debts. When I refused, his face twisted with rage, and before I could react, he punched me hard, the impact sending me stumbling back. "How dare you defy me?" he roared, his voice echoing through the house. My mother-in-law, never missing a chance to belittle me, stood by his side, insisting that I should be thrown out of their home. That night, as the pain in my bruised cheek burned, I decided I had endured enough. I quietly set my plan for revenge into motion. By morning, when they woke up, they were greeted with a shocking and horrific surprise they never saw coming. My name is Mia Hart, and for a long time, I believed my life was a picture of perfection. I had a husband who I thought was my soulmate, a comfortable home, and dreams of a future filled with happiness. But as life unfolded, I discovered that perfection was nothing but an illusion. Beneath the surface lay betrayal, abuse, and manipulation I never thought I'd face. I met Nathan Hart during my final year of college. He was charismatic, with a confidence that swept me off my feet. At just 25 years old, I was convinced I had found my forever person. He promised me the world, love, security, and a future built together. We married quickly, caught up in the rush of love and optimism. After our wedding, Nathan suggested that we move into his family home in Portland to save money while we planned for our future. Reluctantly, I agreed, trusting his intentions. What I didn't realize at the time was that his mother, Diana Hart, ruled the household with an iron fist, and I was stepping into an environment that would slowly dismantle my sense of self. Moving into Diana Hart's home was the beginning of my troubles. Diana was a sharp-tongued woman in her early 50s who owned a thriving property management business. She was controlling, manipulative, and made it clear from the start that I wasn't the wife she had envisioned for her precious son. From the way I dressed to how I cooked, nothing I did escaped her criticism. "Mia, you really should take better care of yourself," she'd say with a thin smile, her tone dripping with condescension. Nathan deserves someone who can handle responsibilities better. At first, I tried to brush off her remarks, convincing myself that she'd warm up to me eventually. But the longer we stayed, the worse it got. She had a way of undermining me in subtle yet cutting ways, especially in front of Nathan. "She's too young to understand real responsibility," Diana would tell him when she thought I wasn't listening. "She's holding you back." What hurt the most was Nathan's reaction, or lack of one. He never stood up for me. Instead, he would shrug and say, "That's just how Mom is. Don't take it personally." But how could I not? Every word, every glare felt personal, and it chipped away at my confidence. I began to realize that Diana wasn't just overbearing, she was actively trying to turn Nathan against me. She'd corner him when I wasn't around, filling his head with doubts about my worth as his wife. The tension in the house grew unbearable, but I held on, telling myself that things would get better. After all, I loved Nathan, and I believed that love would see us through. 2 years into our marriage, the cracks in Nathan's charming facade became impossible to ignore. He had always been a little careless with money, but I had no idea how deep his problems ran until one fateful night. Nathan came home late, his face pale, his hands trembling slightly as he dropped his bag by the door. "Mia," he said, his voice unusually shaky, "we need to talk." I braced myself, sensing that whatever he was about to say would change everything. Sitting across from me at the dining table, he hesitated before blurting out the truth. He had been gambling. "It started small," he said, "just a few harmless bets. But over time, it spiraled out of control. Now, he owed $45,000 to creditors who weren't known for their patience or forgiveness." I stared at him, struggling to process what I'd just heard. "How could you let this happen?" I asked, my voice trembling. "We've been saving for a home, for our future." "I know," he said, avoiding my gaze. "But there's a way to fix this. I need your help, Mia." And then he said it, the words that turned my disbelief into fury. "You need to sell your car and give me your savings. It's the only way to pay them off." My car wasn't just a car. It was my dream, something I had worked tirelessly to earn before I even met Nathan. And my savings? That was supposed to be our foundation for the life we were building together. Now, he was asking me to give it all up to clean up his mess. No, I said firmly, my voice stronger than I expected. I can't do that, Nathan. You need to take responsibility for your own actions. Nathan's expression darkened the moment the word "no" left my lips. His jaw tightened and a cold anger flashed in his eyes. Don't you dare talk to me like that, he snapped, his voice rising. I'm your husband. You're supposed to support me. Support you? I shot back, the anger in my chest bubbling over. Nathan, all I've done is support you. I've put up with your mother's endless insults. I've been the one managing our finances while you've gambled them away. But this? Asking me to sell my car and give up my savings? This is too much. The room seemed to grow colder as the tension between us thickened. Nathan's face twisted with rage. You think you're better than me, Mia? Is that it? He spat, stepping closer. I didn't back down. No, Nathan. I think I deserve better than this. Better than being treated like a backup plan for your failures. And then it happened. Without warning, Nathan's fist connected with my face, the force of the punch knocking me backward into the kitchen counter. Pain radiated through my cheek, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. The shock of what had just happened froze me in place. Nathan stood there, his chest heaving, his hand still clenched in a fist. His face was a mix of anger and something else, maybe guilt, maybe fear, but he said nothing. No apology. No remorse. I stumbled away from him, my head spinning. My cheek throbbed, but the pain wasn't just physical. It was the shattering of every ounce of trust one had left in him. That night, I locked myself in the bathroom, staring at my reflection in the mirror. The red, swollen bruise on my cheek was a painful reminder of what had happened. But the pain wasn't just on my face, it was deep in my heart. The man I thought I loved had betrayed me in every way possible. As I wiped away my tears, something inside me shifted. I had endured enough. I couldn't let Nathan or Diana control me any longer. That was the moment I decided to take my life back. Quietly, I began to form a plan. The next morning, as Nathan left for work, I started putting my plan into action. I knew I had to be strategic. If I was going to escape this nightmare and hold them accountable, I needed evidence. Nathan and Diana had spent years controlling me, but now it was my turn to fight back. I started with Diana. She had always been boastful about her success, especially during her social gatherings. At one of her dinner parties, I overheard her bragging about how she avoided paying taxes. It's all about knowing how to shuffle the numbers, she said with a smug smile, swirling a glass of wine in her hand. That was my first clue. Over the next few days, I kept a close eye on her office. Diana had a habit of leaving documents scattered across her desk, confident that no one would dare to question her. One afternoon, while she was out showing a property, I sneaked into her office. My hands trembled as I took photos of every suspicious document I could find: tax forms, bank statements, and coded transactions. I didn't understand all of it, but I knew I had enough to make a case. At the same time, I began documenting Nathan's abuse. Every time he yelled or threatened me, I discreetly recorded him on my phone. I took photos of the bruise on my cheek and saved every cruel text message he sent. It was emotionally draining to relive those moments, but I knew I needed solid proof to hold him accountable. I couldn't do this alone. I needed someone who could guide me through the legal and emotional battle ahead. That's when I reached out to Logan Price, a detective I had met a few years ago through a mutual friend. Logan was known for his integrity and persistence, and I trusted him to help me navigate this difficult journey. We met in a quiet cafe on the outskirts of Portland. As I poured out my story, Logan listened intently, his expression serious but compassionate. "You're incredibly brave, Mia," he said when I finished. "But you need to be careful. People like Nathan and Diana don't give up control easily. This could get dangerous." His words sent a chill down my spine, but they also fueled my determination. With Logan's guidance, I began organizing the evidence. He showed me how to structure it into a compelling case that could stand up in court. Logan also encouraged me to take the first legal step, filing for divorce and pressing charges against Nathan for domestic violence. The thought of confronting him terrified me, but I knew it was the right thing to do. Filing for divorce was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made, but it was also the most necessary. With Logan's help, I prepared all the documents, including charges of domestic violence and financial abuse against Nathan. The moment I signed those papers, I felt a small weight lift off my shoulders, a glimpse of the freedom I had been yearning for. The evening I handed Nathan the divorce papers is etched in my memory. He was sitting in the living room, scrolling through his phone, when I placed the envelope on the coffee table in front of him. "What's this?" he asked, narrowing his eyes as he opened the envelope. His expression shifted from confusion to rage as he realized what it was. "It's over, Nathan," I said firmly. "I'm filing for divorce. I won't be your victim anymore." He stood abruptly, his fists clenched and his face red with fury. "You think you can just walk away from me?" he spat. "You're my wife. You're supposed to fix this with me." I held my ground, refusing to let him intimidate me. "Fix this? Nathan, I've spent years fixing your mistakes, enduring your abuse, and putting up with your mother's constant manipulation. This time, I'm choosing myself. I deserve better." His anger boiled over. "You'll regret this, Mia," he hissed. "You think you're so smart, but you're nothing without me." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my nerves. "No, Nathan. I'm finally free without you." I turned and walked away, leaving him seething in the living room. It was the first time in years I felt like I had reclaimed a part of myself. While Nathan reeled from the divorce papers, I turned my attention to Diana. The evidence I had collected from her office was damning, detailed records of tax evasion and financial fraud that painted a clear picture of her criminal activities. Logan and I compiled everything into a comprehensive report and submitted it anonymously to the IRS. The investigation gained momentum quickly. Within weeks, Diana's bank accounts were frozen, and her business was under scrutiny. She was livid, but she had no idea I was behind it. One morning, she stormed into the kitchen, clutching a stack of papers. "Mia, have you seen this?" she barked, shoving the documents in my face. "The IRS is investigating me. Someone reported my business." Feigning confusion, I replied, "I have no idea, Diana. Why would anyone do that?" Her eyes narrowed, suspicion flickering across her face, but she couldn't prove anything. I watched as the once dominant matriarch of the Hart family began to unravel. It wasn't long before Diana was charged with tax fraud and embezzlement. The evidence against her was overwhelming, and she was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Her business empire crumbled, and her reputation was ruined. As Diana's world fell apart, Nathan wasn't far behind. The charges of domestic violence and financial abuse I had filed against him began to take their toll. The evidence, photos of my injuries, recordings of his threats, and text messages, left no room for doubt. Nathan's employer, once proud of his work as an investment consultant, terminated his employment as soon as the charges became public. His reputation was destroyed, and his gambling debts continued to mount. One evening, he showed up at my apartment, disheveled and desperate. "Mia," he pleaded, his voice trembling. "Please, I've lost everything. I need your help." I stared at him, the man I once thought I loved, and felt nothing but pity. "You made your choices, Nathan," I said, my voice steady. "Now you have to live with the consequences." He tried to argue, but I didn't give him the chance. I closed the door in his face, cutting him out of my life for good. In court, Nathan faced justice. The judge sentenced him to 6 months in prison for domestic violence, along with mandatory counseling and community service. Additionally, a restraining order was put in place, ensuring he could never come near me again. With Nathan and Diana out of my life, I could finally breathe freely. But the years of abuse, manipulation, and betrayal had left deep scars. Rebuilding my life wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in years, I felt hopeful. I moved into a cozy apartment in a quiet neighborhood of Portland, far from the toxic environment I had endured for so long. It wasn't much, but it was mine, a place where I could start over on my terms. Teaching, a dream I had set aside during my marriage, became my new focus. I secured a position at a local school, working with students who reignited my sense of purpose. Every lesson I taught, every smile I saw, was a step toward healing. Logan encouraged me to share my story with others. At first, the idea felt overwhelming. Reliving those dark moments in front of strangers wasn't easy. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized my story could make a difference. I joined a nonprofit organization that supported survivors of domestic abuse. My first speaking engagement was nerve-wracking. Standing on stage, looking out at a room filled with women who had faced their own struggles, I felt a connection I hadn't expected. Sharing my journey wasn't just about helping others. It was also a step toward healing myself. Their applause at the end of my speech was more than just encouragement. It was a reminder that I wasn't alone. To celebrate my newfound independence, I treated myself to something symbolic, a new car. Driving down the open road in my shiny silver sedan, with the windows down and the music playing, I felt a freedom I hadn't experienced in years. I also started a small garden on my apartment balcony, nurturing it with the same care I was now giving myself. Each blooming flower was a reminder of my growth and resilience. Therapy became a cornerstone of my healing. My therapist, Dr. Lawson, helped me navigate the pain I had buried for so long. With her guidance, I learned to let go of anger and embrace hope. Looking back, I realize how far I've come. Nathan and Diana tried to break me, but they only made me stronger. Their attempts to control me taught me the value of independence, and their betrayal showed me the power of self-worth. This isn't the end of my story. It's just the beginning of a life I can truly call my own. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, please like the content and share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Together, we can continue to share narratives that inspire and empower others. Your support makes all the difference.